Limit is x goes to 3 pi over 2 of 1 plus sine of x divided by cosine squared of x. The first thing we're going to do is try plugging a 3 pi over 2 in for each of the x's. That will give us 1 plus the sine of 3 pi over 2 divided by the cosine of 3 pi over 2 quantity squared. The sine of 3 pi over 2 is a negative 1. The cosine of 3 pi over 2 is a 0. 1 minus 1 is a 0. 0 squared is a 0, so we have the 0 over 0 indeterminate form. Since we have a squared form of one of the trig functions, we can try one of the Pythagorean trig identities. We know that the sine squared of x plus the cosine squared of x equals to 1, and therefore the cosine squared of x equals to 1 minus the sine squared of x. And we can replace the denominator with 1 minus sine squared of x. Now the advantage of doing that is trig functions can factor and cancel just like power functions do. And we have a difference of squares in the denominator. We still have 0 over 0 since the sine of x is a negative 1. But we can go and factor the denominator, which will allow us to cancel. It's a difference of squares, and so it'll factor into 1 plus sine x and 1 minus sine x. And the 1 plus sine x in the numerator and denominator can cancel, and that is what was making 0 since sine of 3 pi over 2 is a negative 1. Leaves us with a 1 in the numerator, so we have limit as x goes to 3 pi over 2 of 1 over 1 minus sine of x. We should no longer have the 0 over 0 indeterminate form, and so we should be able to plug in 3 pi over 2 for the remaining x's. We have 1 over 1 minus the sine of 3 pi over 2. The sine of 3 pi over 2 is a negative 1, so we'll have 1 over 1 minus a negative 1. Minus a negative is the same as adding, so we have 1 over 1 plus 1, which gives us 1 over 2.